The U.S. Senate has voted overwhelmingly to impose more sanctions on Russia, Iran, and North Korea.
Senators in the chamber wishing to change their vote? If not, the yeas are 98, the nays are 2. The bill is passed.
The sanctions impose restrictions on anyone involved in Iran's ballistic missile program and those who do business with them. They also apply to the Islamic Revolution Guards Corps. Additionally, the legislation sanctions North Korea for its missile tests and alleged human rights abuses. It also targets Moscow over Crimea's 2014 reunification with Russia and the Kremlin's alleged interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Russia denies any meddling in the vote. The bill now goes to the White House for President Trump to either sign it into law or veto it. If Trump chooses to veto it, the bill is expected to garner enough support in both chambers, that is, to override this veto and pass into law. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani has said that his country will definitely respond to the new sanctions. Russia and the EU earlier warned Washington over the measure. Joining us now via Skype from London is Marcus Papadopoulos. He's a publisher and editor with Politics First. Many thanks for joining us here on Press TV. Now, what this bill shows, of course, is that the U.S. continues to use sanctions as a policy tool, a foreign policy tool, to impose its will on nations that it disagrees with fundamentally when it comes to its national interests. What do you make of it?
Well, what it shows is that American presidents and American administrations come and go, but what remains more or less the same is the policy, is the mindset of Washington. And what is that policy? What is that mindset? Well, it's about ensuring American global supremacy at any cost. And any country in the world which stands in the way of maintaining American global hegemony will be taken down. And in the context of Russia, Iran and North Korea, I don't believe there will be American military action against those three countries. But what the Americans will try and do, and especially in the case of Russia and Iran, is to try and disable the Russian economy and the Iranian economy. And how will the Americans do that? By imposing sanctions, because sanctions are one of the most lethal weapons of the American government. They have devastated countries around the world. And I think that in the context of Russia, we can draw a historical comparison between what's happening today and what happened in the early 1980s, because in the early 1980s, we had President Ronald Reagan. His administration was very nationalistic, very right-wing, and how they saw it was this: to try and destroy the Soviet Union, they targeted the Soviet economy, and they were very, very successful. Now, if we fast forward to 2017, the Trump administration is very nationalistic, very right-wing, and they believe the way to disable, the way to handicap a very resurgent Russia is to target the Russian economy, and that's what these sanctions are aimed at doing.
Right, but Mr. Papadopoulos, considering how we're already hearing President Hassan Rouhani saying Iran will definitely respond to these new sanctions, Russia already also announcing that it's taking over a U.S. compound in Russia as a retaliatory measure, this tit-for-tat measure that we're going to see is only going to embroil these countries into a more tensions, more escalation, and to dangerous territories then.
Well, if someone thought that relations between America and Russia and America and Iran couldn't get any worse, then think again, because they are going to get worse, and Donald Trump is going to sign these sanctions into force. But we do have to be level-headed. How Russia and Iran respond to the American sanctions are going to be very limited. We've heard today how the Russians are going to strike back against the American embassy in Moscow, but that's not really going to harm the Americans. And if the Iranians do something, if they try to impose their own sanctions on America directly or indirectly, that's not really going to affect the American economy.